This is Mark Mullinax, and I welcome you to Power for the Peaceful, a podcast and class on Taoism. Episode 5, Hidden Brilliance.
When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. The sweet sound of the river as she moves over the stones. The same song that the blood in your body sings as it weaves around your bones. When you're listening, are you listening?
The visible is only one little edge of things. The visible is only the shoreline of the magnificent ocean of the invisible. The invisible is not empty, but is textured, intense with presences. These presences cannot be named. They can only be sensed, not seen. John O'Donohue. If you want to be sure of your road, close your eyes and walk in the dark. St. John of the Cross.
Dr. Dan Snyder from Black Mountain, North Carolina, has read today's tone-setting epigraphs and will pose a powerful question for us later on. Dan is a pilgrim into darkness and mysticism and is my natural go-to person for today's episode. Dan has an amazing new book called Praying in the Dark. No matter your spiritual tradition, his book will become, I think, a welcome part of your reading. Welcome and thank you for your time. This podcast seems worthwhile to you, so please tell others you know and or find the ratings page for this podcast on your provider and do what you feel led to do. Thank you. Also, at my website, you may leave a note, pose a question, raise objections, make corrections, and even ask to be a future reader and question asker on the pod. Reserve the episode you want by citing the verse number. Go to markmullinax.com or you can email me at mmullinax@mhu.edu. Tao Te Ching, we're learning, is an ever-relevant and millennia-old worldview teaching how to live in a world that's asleep and mostly forgotten its inborn, intrinsic, and spontaneous powers to embody its original peace. The habitual ways reality is misrepresented by media, cultural systems, economics, politics, even religion, these habit lullabies lure us into forgetful, sleepwalking behaviors that harden into lifestyles where we disremember our roots and heritage of peace. Now, habits can harden into ruts, and ruts can deepen into something that feels like a grave. To remember Tao is to remember the entire universe's interconnections, how each particle acts as an ambassador for and interacts one with the other, and together there's a spontaneous process called, for lack of a better term, Tao. Tao is always there when we, tired of the rut race, remember. Today, verse 4. This verse introduces what it means for us, that Tao is ancestral, utterly mysterious, and why all our efforts to declare independence or exception from this ancestral process pale, wither, and end badly. Tao blunts our shrill bluster with emptiness. Tao untangles our convoluted, ego-assisted schemes with stillness. Tao's wisdom and genius expose our short-term and short-on-wisdom attempts to disrupt nature's ancestral methods. Tao is submerged well beyond our manipulation. Its genius is in darkness. Its skill lies in potential. At Tao's depth is the nature of all nature. Because Tao is so subtle in its processes, few notice how its brilliance merges and submerges deep in this star-dusty world. Here's passage 4, without origin. Tao presents as empty, dark, and complete potential, the inexhaustible womb of everything. How very deep is this emptiness, how ancestral. Tao blunts every sharp edge. It untangles every knot. Its brilliance merges deep in the dusty world beyond our fat-fingered words and ways to frame it. So profoundly hidden, still and clear, it hardly appears, but that's the way it is. I have no idea whose offspring it is. Consider it the ancestor of the gods.
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
First, why do we like caves? Ever been in a cave and you turn off all the lights? That's a powerful experience. Is there not some place within us that comes alive in or responds to that total dark? Second, why does the desert hold attraction? Not much there. Sand, sun, heat, cold. Yet the desert is a favorite place to which reflective-minded individuals withdraw. Why? Third, why do we find ourselves attracted to but never bored by mystery? Mysteries, whether in literature or real, hint at and offer so much richness that absorbs us into something other than our own concerns. A good mystery piques our curiosity. So dark caves, empty deserts, absorbing mysteries. Do you feel sometimes the tug to just strip down to basics and become so spiritually naked as you divest yourself of untold and unnecessary clutter? This tug is the process of Tao, quietly quickening, subtly summoning, and always available. Yeah, this verse is spiritual. It continues and deepens a theme we have seen in every episode, and I'll ask this now in a question. Is there anything one can do to learn more about Tao? The answer is no. No traps one can lay. No bait with which to lure. Actions, none. Words, hardly. Doing, useless. Well-lit paths? Nope. We discern Tao by doing not, acting not, being obvious not. Caves, deserts, and mysteries entice us into their different spiritual energies and rhythms. Participating in their different tempos is to re-pair. That is, to pair yet again Tao's original rhythm with our spiritual original rhythm. The two are the same. Uncreated, Tao is creation's process. Unseen, Tao is known in the scene. Tao is the womb, but the birthmarks of its birthing process is upon us all. While no way exists to apprehend Tao directly, in darkness and emptiness and mystery, we avail ourselves in the spaces where Tao works, where our processes come back again, alive to their original, quiet, dark, and mysterious rhythms. Always there, Tao is, hardly traceable, and never twice the same. Think of your favorite mountain. Though the top may be shrouded by weather, you know it's there.
Sometimes we need to be taught how and where to seek wonder, but it's always there, waiting, full of mystery and magic. Diane Ackerman.
Tao understanding begins with a radical agnosticism, a brutally honest sense that Tao cannot be known by our ordinary means. No ego-assisted human map or quest locates it. Tao can only become known indirectly, like the echolocation skills of a bat in a cave's darkness. The Taoist hones these bat-like skills. These skills, I think, are in us all, though perhaps not activated or practiced. And yet Tao awaits us to recognize our inborn skills. Like that book on your shelf you've yet to take down and read.
When you're listening, Are you listening? When you're listening, when you're listening, are you listening?
So let's expand on these teachings from this verse, one by one. First teaching. Tao presents itself as empty, as emptiness. Empty of what, though? Tao is empty of aspiration, action, preference. Yet we, who are so full of such, may mistake our wishes as somehow aligned with Tao. We, so full of wishes and preferences, move through life mostly through dreams of our own making. And we call that dream life life itself. So it is we mostly miss the vast reality of what is happening all around us because we focus only upon our own hallucinations. See the show notes here for a TED Talk. To join with Tao, we must empty and strip down. The cure to this is to become empty ourselves. Why empty? To recognize Tao's emptiness, of course. Many a spiritual tradition has a teaching of emptiness, or that state of pure consciousness, in which the mind has been relieved of all ego or desire-related objects and images. Emptiness is treated as a positive, mystical state in Judaism, the Vedic or Hindu traditions, Buddhism, and Christian traditions. Just a note on the Christian version of emptiness. In the scripture called Philippians, Jesus is described as emptied. The Greek word is kenosis, and his empty state prepared him for his task as the God-human. In Taoism, emptiness practice deconstructs illusions and hallucinations fed by the scattered and undisciplined mind. This deconstruction, however raw it can be, is liberation. Why do so many spiritual traditions focus upon this radical power of emptiness? So that what is original may emerge in us free of distortions. Emptiness kills ego. Emptiness ends falseness. Only the empty cup proves useful. Emptiness is abundance. When truly emptied of desire, see verse 1, one is more likely to see reality and not live in hallucination. What is not real cannot survive emptiness. On the first day of my Buddhism classes, I bring in an empty cup with a pitcher of water, set the cup down in front of a volunteer student, and then pour in the water, and keep pouring, water spilling everywhere. "Stop! No more will go in," the student would cry. And I do stop, and I say, I have just acted out a famous story in Buddhism. In the story, the master now tells the student, "Like the cup, you too are too full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you anything unless you first empty your cup?" Second teaching, Tao presents as darkness.
To Know the Dark by Wendell Berry. To go in the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go without sight, and find that the dark too blooms and sings, and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings.
Darkness is quieting, and quiet quietens. As a college student, I was resident assistant in a rowdy residence hall. One night I learned something quite by accident. At night, whenever the lights were dimmed in the hallways, people did not come out so often and horse around. They stayed behind closed doors. People could actually study. Darkness is quieting. Darkness is a requirement. To see things invisible in the bright light of day like stars. Just as emptiness reveals a deeper reality, so too darkness. To experience the full moon, you go dark. The necessary beauty of the Milky Way, all spangled and pinpricked in the night sky, is a dark time experience. Practicing darkness, we get reoriented to our guiding stars. In darkness, great things happen. Because Tao presents as dark, we discover Tao and its power for peace in our dark. Practicing darkness reduces the ego's firestorms. The so-called self disappears. The dark and its close relation, silence, do their work because of their empty natures. Picture a seed in the ground, softened by moisture. Only then does it grow. And that's how Tao works. May we learn to trust the practice of darkness.
You Darkness by Rainer Maria Rilke. You darkness from which I come, I love you more than all the fires that fence out the world. For the fire makes a circle for everyone, that no one sees you anymore. But darkness holds it all, the shape and the flame, the animal and myself, how it holds them, all powers, all sight. And it is possible, its great strength is breaking into my body. I have faith in the night.
Third teaching, potential and womb. Out of the darkness and silence comes potential. Think of potential in yourself as that which has always been within and around us, in embryonic or seed form, but now coming to fruit. Good karma is the metaphorical planting of good seeds, with the knowledge that the seeds may not bear fruit for years. Same thing for bad karma, by the way. Sowing good seeds is a long-term investment, relying upon potential to bring the seeds to life and to fruit.
The seed is in the ground. Now may we rest in hope while darkness does its work. Wendell Berry.
Think of potential as a lens grounded in Tao, through which we may catch a glimpse of future hope. We parent kids, invest our hearts, and nurture all we love, to preserve. Potential is the womb of the present, giving birth to a Tao-drenched future. And so Tao Te Ching is the world's most feminine spiritual text. Consider Tao like an empty womb, inexhaustible in potential. Whatever empty space you can conceive of, like an empty field, an empty schedule, becoming emptied of a bad habit, these carry the potential for hope. Hope that in darkness does its work. Tao's womb is the laboratory of hope. And when we're emptied of stuff, of light, of ego, then we are most Tao-like, pure potential. Fourth teaching, hidden and submerged. Tao is like the common earthworm. And let me enlarge on this. What do worms do? Their work is in the dark, hidden, submerged. And earthworms ingest the decaying organic stuff of the ground, stuff no one thinks important, and makes fertilizer out of it. Crap into fertilizer in the submerged, hidden dark. Taoist processes are likewise hidden, submerged in the dark.
We know more about the movement of celestial bodies than what goes on in the darkness underneath our feet. Leonardo da Vinci.
Like the earthworm, the Taoist takes the crap of the world and without superpower or fanfare simply makes fertilizer, which makes humus. Likewise, O human, we are humus, and that enables humaneness. Humus, humility, human, humane, humble. Humus is what we are made of. Humus is the place from which we sprang, and to which we shall return, dust to dust.
The darkness shall be the light, and the stillness the dancing. T.S. Eliot.
In the dark submerged is our original home. Our natural calling is earthworm-like, turning crap of our world into fertilizer, mud into pottery, tears into joy, chaos into harmony. This is the power for peace. For the power of all these earthworm-like experiences and practices root social justice. In all these teachings from chapter 4, the humble, empty human, in the dark, silent emptiness, hatches her good seeds to transform the ecological balance of the above ground and the visible world. As below, so above. As above ground, so below ground. As on the mat, so off the mat. Taoists are above all, or beneath all, rather, quiet changers of hopelessness into hope, tears into joys, miseries into comfort, griefs into rejoicing, chaos into calm, wavering into resolve, and conflict into peace. Because it is not in the nature of fear or violence to rule forever. So the sacred practices of darkness and emptiness and potential and the womb are the eternal, time-tested and still current practices to quiet a world of violence. Violence cannot rule forever. A thunderstorm, volcano eruption, or earthquake are all quite temporary. So our nonviolent practices in verse 4 return to us to a fundamental trust in the original peace processes of creation, and we are summoned to rejoin these peace-waging processes ourselves. The lowly, humble earthworm is our guide today.
One discovers the light in darkness. That is what darkness is for. But everything in our lives depends on how we bear the light. James Baldwin.
In conclusion, in our world today, by remaining sensitive to Tao and paying wordless attention to the ordinary, dark, silent, empty, and womb-like course of things, we gain wisdom to know when, where, and why to act. Homework. Ever fasted? From food, sweets, alcohol, toxic relations. In the spirit of the Christian season of Lent, which is a time to relinquish hold or become empty of certain things, so that one may then take up something in its stead, here's your assignment, if you wish. Empty your life of one thing and pick up a counter activity to offset it. Drop a habit, for example, and then donate the amount of money one might have spent on that habit to a charity or justice venture. As you let go and drop into being empty of that habit, notice the space opening up in you. Befriend your emptiness, and you'll find yourself a womb laboratory of radical hope. What is it in you awaiting your giving birth?
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
Mark, what is the relationship between silence and speech? Does silence and speech arise together, as emptiness and fullness arise together, as verse 2 seems to suggest? Yes, our words can be fat-fingered and clumsy. They can betray spaces that were meant for stillness. Can they also be invitations, trailheads into a wilderness where nothing is named and no thingness lives in its pure living immediacy? Some prayers can be violent colonizers of the heart, but can some also be the child of silence, the infant's first cry upon leaving Tao's womb?
Thanks very much, Dan, for this deep engagement. I think you're onto something. Your question is like a gate opening for me, and it's taught me. Tao does not speak in human language, of course, but without rejecting or judging, Tao will invite us. Tao's invitation does not come with a total ban on words, because our words, however fat-fingered or awkward, may be our best attempt in that moment to respond. Words are our scrawled ballooned signs that say in our cartoonish lives, "More, please." Almost any, maybe every relationship we share with others or with animals contains words and auditory cues, and I think, and I hope, these cues help to initiate what can be a long-term relationship. And to use a metaphor from your question, Dan, words are trailheads that set a mood, a tone, and create this ineffable sense of a future beyond that trailhead. Initial words or cries are prayers and even permissions for more relationship. From words, we can graduate to knowing glances, winks, eye contact, body posturings, touch, caresses, and other silences. But words start the ball rolling. One image I like is of a chessboard with all the pieces in their first positions. A chessboard with every piece in its first position is pure potential. And then you make your first move, and that first move is responded to. I compare this first move to the spoken word. That first move is necessary, though it is introductory. As chess play continues, you merge into a much more complex and unpredictable interplay, a dynamic back and forth begun in the simplicity of your first moves. Think of words as our initial moves, from which we may weave more complexity, more meaning, and with more at stake. Finally, regarding your infant's cry, I consider this an authentic Tao sound already, for that cry is pure biological need, and hardly an ego-assisted intrigue or scheme. I think we are often in such situations, like when we're in new spaces or new relationships, even a new medical situation, and circumstances when we are lost in wonder and awe. And all we can do is just moan or howl at the moon or go whee down the roller coaster of life. So our fat-fingered words, even those spoken in scheming, can be in the Tao spirituality the beginning invitation to a transfiguring relationship with Tao. Tao is non-judgmental, and even a wrong or ill-used word can, I feel, be a trailhead, a first chess move into something eternal. So thank you for your question, Dan. This podcast is an original labor of love, designed, written, and co-produced by many, whose essential idea is that the Tao Te Ching is good news for the day. Tao still speaks. Thanks to Dr. Dan Snyder for his voice and question. Artwork by Audrey Davis. The song Put Your Roots Down is graciously donated by songwriter and singer Molly Hartwell. The copyright for quotations from Tao Te Ching is held by Fortress Press. May your days begin in peace and become wombs for radical hope.
When you're listening,